So using the same basic idea that the Romans had, they had several collecting pools along the aqueducts, and what they would do is they would have a stream, which I'm using my hose at, not blasting away, but just to trickle. I filled up the top bucket with some kind of aggregate, some kind of thing that would make the water not acceptable to drink. So I got a shovel full of dirt from my backyard, and right now this is filling up with dirty, muddy water. Okay? So what will happen is, as this fills up, it's on an angle. However, actual collecting pools would have had a notch cut out here, so it would have been pretty flat. But just so I can expedite the process, we've got the collecting pool is going to collect a whole bunch of water. It's going to be disgusting. That's going to eventually pour out into this next collecting pool and filter out more of the gunk and grime and make its way into the final collecting pool before it went to the aqueduct, which would make its way to Rome. All right, now it started raining out here, but you know what? I'm in the middle of this experiment. We're gonna let it go. As you take a look at the first bucket, we can see that the dirt was here. The sediment has stayed at the bottom. When we get to the second bucket, we look on the side. You can see it is a bit clearer by the time we get to the third, and that's just straight up because it wasn't clean. But there is less grime that's inside the inside this third bucket. So the ancient Romans, it's a really simple idea. They would just let gravity take over, have different pools collecting the water, and then bam, by the time you get to the end, I know there's a whole bunch of pine needles that are in here, but by the time you get to the end, the water's cleaner, making its way towards the aqueducts. So after a little bit of time, I adjusted the stream up here at their water source, running down the aqueduct. There we go. And as you can see, it kind of like has waves. The water comes in, puddles up. I had to adjust it a couple times to make sure that it was right. But the water is pooling right by our drain, and from our drain we can see that's a good sign. We have a steady flow filling in. Now there are gaps. The gaps are where there's air pressure. The air is trapped in there. But the idea is eventually it won't. So there's water, it's pulling up at the bottom. We have some bubbles. But that is completely filled with water. And we can see right here, it is draining. So the ancient Romans, this is the biggest part right here, being able to go back uphill.
Okay, so Mr. Gutzmerl asked me to explain why the water can be pushed uphill. So if we have a starting reservoir up here, and we have a pipe that brings water all the way down and follows the contour of the ground and we have a valley here. And if we need to push the water uphill to get to a reservoir over here, well, how do we do that? Well, the reason why this works is because the starting pond elevation here and all that water over here weighs something, and that weight is pushing the water down to here, and all of that water and that weight of that water here being acted on by gravity is then pushing the water up to this pond. Now, we are able to see this in our everyday lives by water towers. So if we just pretend that this is a water tower really high up in the air, and this is your house, the pressure of the water in the water tower is able to push the water through the pipes and then get it up to your house so you can use it over here. And what that's actually called is the hydraulic grade line. So the starting pond elevation has a hydraulic grade line, and as it goes through the pipes, the hydraulic grade line starts to lose value, and anywhere below this hydraulic grade line, this pond can push water up to any sort of area. So that's the basic gist of why that works.
So I had a problem with air pockets. So what I did is I drained it all out. There are no air pockets. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect it to the bucket, and when I connect it to the bucket, you're going to see the water push its way uphill. Here we go. It's coming down. It's collecting right now at the bottom of the tube. Did I miss it? Nope, there it is. As you can see, the water rising at a decent pace. It is going uphill. So the Romans had this amazing idea theft. It actually came from the Arabic world of using arches to support their buildings. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make an arch and show you its ability, its strength compared to a flat top of a doorway, or a lintel as they're called. So anyway, I'm using 2 cuts from the same exact piece of wood. So it was 1 board, now it's 2 boards. Just to give you the idea that I'm not using different materials, just to show you that you can have different amounts of strength depending on the shape of the construction. So as I'm waiting for the arch to dry, which has been a day-long process, we're going to talk about this lintel right here. This is like a door frame. Let's imagine this is on top of a door. We have our pillars on the side, and then all the weight that would be on top of a door is pushing down directly. Here we go. Okay. Can I do this? All right. I don't know if you can see me or you can see the whole thing, but I know you can definitely see my feet. Now, as I stand on this, this is if this board was longer, you would see that it would actually be bowing in the middle. Okay. Aiming down, because all of my weight right here is pushing down in the middle. There is, as I stand on this, if we were to weigh the buckets on the side, you would see there'd be weight on the buckets and be, distributed. However, the full force of my weight is directly in the middle. All right, so this is literally the moment of truth. We saw the lintel just above the door frame, and all the weight gets put down in the middle, and that pushes the middle down. With the arch, what's supposed to happen is the weight that's on top gets pushed out to the side. So the bottom, what happens is it's just so that there's because this isn't so large, and I don't have it extending down too far. It has to be some pressure coming in a little bit. So here we go. Oh, it did hold me before it broke apart. Together. And the only reason I'm pulling chairs for balance. That's like 90% of me being held up by that arch, and because of physics and construction, this is more of an ab workout than anticipated. Because of that, the weight is being pushed out to the side. Actually, because of this design, you can actually put more weight on top and have that pushed down than you could on a flat overhang of a door. The lecture, the one I was telling you about for the past 2 weeks, this lecture is going to be on roads. I truly like the concept of roads. One of my favorite songs by a band called Cake. They say if you want to build cities, you've got to build roads. And the Romans built some awesome roads. And I know that you're thinking probably 10 seconds ago that your history teacher is nuts because he's excited about roads. Hopefully by the end of this, you'll be excited about roads too. And I know I've done my job. And if not, that's okay. Be excited about other things, JoJo Siwa or My Little Pony, whatever you're into. So anyway, I'm excited about roads. Let's talk about Roman roads. As we can take a look at this map on the screen, this is ancient Rome. However, this is the roadways of ancient Rome. Let's zoom in. What? Look at all this stuff that's going on here. As you see, we have the city of Rome, and along the city of Rome, we have all these different orange lines that extend out. Those are various roadways that were built throughout the Roman Empire. And as we can scroll over, we can see that these roads extended out through Spain, through Gaul, all the way up into Britannia, up to Hadrian's Wall. There you see Hadriani, there's his wall right there. We can see it in the Germanic territories. There's Germania, as we know today as Germany. These roads extended through Greece, crossed into Asia Minor, which is now Turkey, over into where the Tigris and Euphrates is, past the Israelites and Phoenicia, all the way through Egypt, past Carthage, and all the way back out over here to the Strait of Gibraltar. I was going to stop the whole video because I was stuttering over that, but the Straits of Gibraltar. So throughout the entire Mediterranean, can we zoom out? Yeah, there we go. The Romans had roads throughout it. Over 53,000 miles of roads they built. Now, why did they build so many roads? If you want to have a civilization that's attached to each other, you have to have some way of truly connecting each other, connecting all those different components. The best way to connect them at this time were roads. So people didn't have to clear through brush or go through the woods or wilderness. There was a roadway to follow. It made travel so much faster, not only for people to be connected, but for the military to be able to travel far, fast. And by being able to travel very far, very fast, they're able to conquer a lot of places. We're going to take a look at the construction of the road. I know this is so exciting, but it truly is, because without the roads, we wouldn't be talking about Rome's impact on our society. As we take a look here, slaves did the work for the building of the Roman Empire. Romans when they would conquer a place, they would get their land, they would get the resources, and they would get people. Those people were slaves. So the slaves were doing the work. As you can see, this is a very good image of showing the different steps of building the roadway. We have one crew clearing the rubble, the second crew leveling things out. The third crew is putting down some kind of rubble, some kind of layer that is permeable. There's a word for you. Permeable means water can move past it. So piles of rocks, water can go through. If you have a handful of rocks, you hold them together and you put water on the top, it's going to go through. So anyway, rocks, and on top of that you have some kind of smaller gravel that goes on top of that. Water can still get through it, but now things are getting a little more flat, a little more solid on top of that. So they have the gravel. You have smaller gravel here. You get to sand. Then on top of the sand, you have the rocks. And here you go. You have the stone, crushed rock, gravel, sand, and the stones on top. And the reason you put the stones on top of the sand is for leveling purposes. You put a stone down and it's a little higher than the other, you just move it back and forth until it, boom, pushes right into place. If water were to hit the top of the stones, and the way this is designed, you can see it's on a slight curvature. Most roads, actually, if you were to look out any majority of roads that have a yellow line on it, they're a little bit angled. So the water hits the middle and goes off to the sides. The Romans, brilliant. They did this. If we go back, I don't know if this image doesn't have it, but they have like a gutter system, like a curb area. So the water will drain off to the side to the curb area, collect, and make its way to smaller sections. Let's go back here. So the water would drain off to the side to this curb area, and every so many feet or every so many stones, there'd be a gap where water would drain out to the side to the drainage ditch. So by having the water leave the roadway actually, there'd be less potholes because water doesn't collect and then freeze and expand and break the road apart. And it keeps the road fairly clean. Here is an actual image, a cross section of a Roman road. Below we can see the larger stone and the gravel, then the sand and the stone on top. And you can see even with the stone on top, it is curved so that the water can drain off to the side. These are Roman roads, how they look like today. I mean, they are still there thousands of years after they were constructed. Think about roads in Pennsylvania. There are roads in PA that are destroyed after 1 year. These Roman roads have been here for thousands of years. Take a look at this. This is still a Roman road. Yes, grass is growing in between it. Nature takes over. However, the roadway still has survived. There's another image of a Roman road. I know so many images of Roman roads, but by having these roads, people could travel easily from place to place, get goods from one place to another, get the military from one place to another. Actually, there was tourism was growing at the time, not like tourism is today, but tourism was growing. So people wanted to travel throughout Rome and see other places. We'll eventually get to that. Well, hopefully this year we'll get to that tourism idea with Rome. But moving on. There are several keys to having why the roadways are so important. One, the military was able to travel from place to place easily. They were incredibly efficient. So getting goods from one place to another, getting the military from one place to another, just all that stuff made it simplified. They were expertly engineered, meaning they were put together very well. Just as I showed you, they had multiple levels leading to the top. So when you're on a road in the United States of America, you just think it's the thing on the top. However, there's so many layers below the roadway that allows the road to be as sturdy as it actually is. But the Romans engineered amazing roads that are still around today. Man, this website has a bunch of advertisements. Moving on. Once again, this is thousands of years later. Look how perfectly engineered. Now, it's still here. You can destroy buildings, but like roadways, they weren't taking up all the stone and getting rid of it. Was it a bumpy ride? Yes. It wasn't 100% smooth and flat. However, it lasted, and it was, it's a lot easier to walk on that than it is through forest. They were easy to navigate. They included networks of post houses and roadside inns, so people could travel a certain distance in a day and they have a place to stay at that night. They were well protected, well patrolled. The roads were very important, and they allowed the Romans to completely map their empire. If we go back to this original image, we can look at this map of today from today and see where all the roads were. But because of these roads, they were able to figure out what their empire actually looked like. We are boom, road, bam. Now that roadway inspired one of the greatest roads on the planet. It's in Germany. It's called the Autobahn. The Autobahn is was created during World War II, and it was made in the same idea as the ancient Romans for military, to be able to get the German army from one place to another in Germany as fast as possible. So, taking the ideas from an earlier road in Germany, I can't pronounce the name of it. It begins with an R, ends with Bahn. But anyway, they took this idea and they expanded on it and made this amazing road system that was originally made for the military, and now Germans use it throughout Germany. Let's take a little image right here. Boom. Here is an image of the Autobahn, and you can see it's pretty smooth. The way they constructed it, and it's still, I mean, it's an engineering marvel. They had so many small concepts in mind when putting this road together. One, they did not have every quarter mile had to have a curve, so it wasn't just a straight line forever. They could have done it. They could have just cut through mountains and made it completely flat and straight. However, every quarter of a mile, the road has a slight bend, and they did this so that drivers would be more likely to stay awake if they had to pay attention by turning the wheel a little bit. If you've ever driven through Ohio, you can completely understand that turning your wheel a little bit is a welcomed joy. Ohio is a flat state with just straight roads, and it is so boring. The most boring states to drive through. If you're from Ohio, awesome. I'm sure there's a lot of cool things to do in Ohio. However, driving through it is one of the most boring times of your existence. So the Germans, when they were creating this Autobahn, they said every quarter mile have a slight turn, so people had to focus on driving. They built their road so deep. Actually, what you see is the surface, but below the surface, it goes down at least 24 inches of gravel and sand, so that it is there's a great structure underneath, so that the roadway on top actually is will last a lot longer. The Autobahn was famous for not only being an engineering marvel, it was famous for having no speed limit. However, there are small portions of the Autobahn today that don't have a speed limit. Does that mean you can drive as fast as you want? Yes. The rule is you have to drive. You can only drive as fast as you feel is safe. They actually this is an odd. I told you the lecture, and when you get a Gutzmyrtle lecture, you get some weird facts in there. One of the weird facts, a couple of weird facts about the Autobahn in Germany, which once again was inspired by the Roman roads. One of the things about the Autobahn, they have a holiday once a year where they celebrate traffic. So people will pull on the side of the roads and just cause traffic for a while, and they'll cookouts and have frisbee in certain areas. That's weird. There is what else was I going to say? This is something I think is pretty cool. They do it some places in America, but they have signs that change the speed limit depending on the time of day, so that they can adjust the flow of traffic. If it's a busy time, they'll lower the speed limit so it's safer on the road, and then when it's a less busy, they will have the speed limit increase, but the digital sign will change. Anyway, that's neither here nor there, but the Autobahn was based on the Roman roads. Now, not to be outdone, not even outdone, but it was under Dwight D. Eisenhower, President of the United States. He was in Germany prior to World War II. He saw the road system in Germany and thought it was an amazing idea. He brought that back to the United States and came up with what is known as the Dwight D. Eisenhower System of Interstate and Defense Highways. Excuse me. So on this map, you can see these highways go throughout the United States of America. They were constructed to be able to connect cities of more than 50,000 people. At the time, that was a pretty big deal. So cities of over 50,000 people. These roadways stretch throughout the United States of America. So it's possible for me to get on one of these highways. Actually, let's say you follow my arrow. If I were to drive north to go to I-80, I could follow I-80 through Chicago, past Omaha, Nebraska. I keep going through Colorado, and then all the way to Sacramento to San Francisco. It's possible to drive from my house to San Francisco following two highways. I have to take the turnpike north, and I can get on I-80, I can take that all the way west and go to San Francisco. That is possible due to this highway system. Now, we use the highways in the United States of America for travel. However, if there was some sort of military reason, like America's under attack, or we had to get military equipment from one place to another, these highways could be shut down for military to be able to use those roadways to get from one place to another. So we have a system of connectors between places so that military can go from one place to another. That is what the ancient Romans did. That's why they had their roadway. We take a look at this. Oh man, I know this is so boring, roads, but it's so interesting. These are just some basic intersections. And there's so much planning that goes into making an intersection. Before Fleetwood had its roundabout, there you go. Whether you like the roundabout or not, there was at the very least 1 year of a study to figure out if a roundabout would be the best idea for that intersection that's right by Sheetz on 222 in Mazellum Springs. Would that be the best road system? And there's a study, not only a study of the traffic, there's a study of the environment, there's a study of space. There's all these different studies that go in to see if this would be the best thing. And a roundabout was the best decision. And in fact, it truly is the best decision for that specific intersection. The traffic has been cut down tremendously on Route 222 when you're traveling east to west. Here's a little fact for you when you think about roads. Any road system that ends in an even number is traveling east and west, even east-west. North-south is an odd number. So if you think of Route 81 north and south, Route 80 ends in a 0, east and west, 222, east and west. There's a little bit for you. So anyway, actually even 61, that travels north and south. Bam, it all fits together. So anyway, this roundabout alleviates traffic. And another thing that's good about the roundabout is if you take the old intersection, this cross intersection, 4 legs, people would be traveling along this and they get the yellow light. They would speed up to try to beat the yellow light, and it'd be red, but they'd be going too fast. They would just go through the intersection through a red light. As people from the other directions would head out, there's a better chance of a fatal crash at that intersection when it was a cross intersection because people traveling too fast at the yellow light. Now with a roundabout, people have to slow down. So if there is an accident, it is at an angle. So it cuts down fatal crashes where people will die because people are going slower and they're not hitting head on or what they call T-boning at the side. They're actually hitting at an angle and more chance of survival. There are so many types of intersections. You have this, I don't know if you can see it, the non-conventional, how you have to, if you want to, you have to get across the one lane. There's so many plans that have to go into it. But moving on. And this is actually from the United States Army, from the official homepage of the SDDCTEA. There you go, the Transportation Engineering Agency. If you are truly into roads, this is a cool website because it will show you how they go about planning roads, how it's going to impact people walking from one place to another, the water, all these things. It's pretty interesting. Just for the sake of time, I know this lecture is getting pretty lengthy, but this is something I'm super interested in. This is, you're going to have notes this week, so you get a lecture. People are experimenting with new types of roadways like solar roads, making the road. You can see in this image. I mean, I'm not going to play the video. Actually, maybe I could with no volume. So as you see this, yes, boom, video as I'm talking. So there's people riding their bike in the Netherlands, and this roadway right here are actually solar panels that are strong enough for people to put weight on. What's cool about that, not only is it serving the purpose of a road, hey guy, I'm doing the talking here, not only is it serving a purpose of a road, but it's also creating energy by collecting sunlight to convert into electricity. So it's a 2-for-1. That's one idea of experimenting with what roadways could be. Another idea, here we go. Can I play this? No volume. Great. So there's companies out there thinking of new ways to construct roads, and here we have, here's the old way of putting the concrete and all this stuff down and flattening out. Their idea, can we get past this? And is using recycled plastic. There we go. Using recycled plastic to build a Lego-like road. You have to fill in a gap in the road. You have this machinery that just picks it up and puts it in. Now you have a roadway. Anytime there's any kind of like repair, you just take the piece out, put a new piece in. All made from recycled plastic. Believe me, the world has enough plastic that we could use for building roadways. And underneath it, which is a very interesting concept, having any kind of, you have to get water from one place to another. You can have water systems, any kind of electricity going from one place to another that can be under the road instead of all the lines that you see throughout, as you're driving on the highway, you see all the electric lines. They could be underground. It's a pretty cool concept. And the last thing I'm going to share with you, in the United States of America, roads are so special around the world, but roads are so special that we actually, in the United States of America, have what's called the National Scenic Byway. I know this is a Wikipedia site. One of the very few things Wikipedia does that's pretty good is lists. So anyway, this lists out the National Scenic Byways in the United States of America. These are roads that are deemed awesome. I mean, they have certain components like there's scenic quality, there's a natural quality, historic quality, a cultural quality. There's something cool about that road that you can drive along. Unfortunately, in Pennsylvania, we only have one, and that is out in the western side of the state. It is near the city of Erie, and it goes into New York. It just follows along Lake Erie. There's only one in Pennsylvania. However, there are a lot in the United States of America. The reason I was talking about roads and how we ended up talking about a road in Pennsylvania out in western PA goes back to the Roman roads. We have 55,000 miles of roads in ancient Rome throughout the empire, so they could expand. The army was able to use it. It was greatly engineered. Still, there's many ancient roads from the Romans still around today. In fact, I forgot to mention this. In the city of Rome, people drive on the ancient Roman roads. And one of the cars that is very popular for affluent, rich people in Italy is a Ferrari. And they hate driving on those roads because Ferraris aren't that high off the ground and the Roman roads are all bumpy. Anyway, just a lot of cool stuff with Roman roads. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. I mean, this is one of the things I really enjoy. And it stinks because in class, there's a lot more I'll be going into. But now that we're doing this virtual thing, hopefully I got some of the points across. But that was my lecture on Roman roads. Make sure you do the assessment and enjoy your day or don't. Always your choice.